So, he said, my name's Philip St. John. I am an artist who grew up in Hastings, Minnesota. I came to Minneapolis in 2015 to start doing open mics. I've performed at 7th Street Entry a couple of times. I've performed on Care 11. I've had a handful of music videos. I have quite a few amount of projects. Most of the info you can either find it on Instagram on my link tree, or you can search my full name on Spotify. That's two L's and the Saint is spelled out, or Philip St. John.
All right. And so you're an instrumentalist or singer, producer, all of it?
So I'm a hip hop. Hip hop is my main focus, but I've dabbled in other genres. I'm also a soul singer. I grew up with a background in choir, so I was able to use that in my music career to just enhance my music.
Very nice. So I do like to start out. After that portion, I have just two quick questions that'll get us into the flow of things. Hold those up here real quick. Okay, so first question is could you tell us about your journey into the music industry, kind of where you started and what got you into the music industry?
Well, I started off with my love of rap music from listening with my friends. That got me interested. I had some lady friends who were really into Aesop Rock, Atmosphere, Brother Ali, also other, similar artists who weren't on the Rhymesayers label. And eventually I started writing my own music, and I performed with a buddy of mine for a minute. We were Herb and Spice. That was the first
Nice.
rap name we had. Then eventually I kind of started writing more music and wanted to practice more. My buddy kind of didn't want to practice as much or write as much after we had just spent all this money on an album. And so I was like, I'm going to just start going on my own. So I started recording in Minneapolis. And yeah, like I said, I went to a Fifth Element open mic in Uptown when that was still open. And I went every month for like a year and a half.
Nice.
And it only took me like four of them until somebody just invited. It was actually CMJ. I don't know if you know Christopher Michael Jensen. He's
Little bit.
Yeah, he's definitely been a big part in helping me get into the scene and get connected to people and believing in me and other artists who just start out. And so yeah, he invited me to a residency he had at Honey when that was still open. So
Honey, Minneapolis.
it's really
RIP.
funny and weird to be like, oh yeah, I went to the spots that are gone now. But those were the very welcoming avenues that got me into music. But yeah, it wasn't until I was about finished with my first project that I hit up 7th Street Entry, and they're like, okay, you have this one day, you're on fifth hold, there's four other artists who want to play this, and if they all drop out, you can play. And then they all dropped out. So
Hey.
it was like a very lucky situation. But I had like a couple, like 100 people or so come out. Very great show. And after that, I just started connecting with more people. I used to do this festival out in Wisconsin called Shred Fest with my buddies. It kind of got bigger and bigger every year. They eventually rented out the Hudson's tubing place, so they rented out their venue for like weddings and stuff. And so we had like this big festival, but then the next year they like couldn't afford to do it again. So that was like 6 years of them doing it, and then eventually it stopped. But it was just all this DIY stuff, and we kept making things happen. And so I had slowly started doing like a bunch of shows in the cities all around. A lot of weird niche ones, like comedy and hip hop show. I did an improv comedy show with other musicians at the bowling spot in Uptown, Bryant Lake Bowling, at the theater there. that was interesting. They actually, I would do a song and then they do a improv skit based off of my lyrics.
That sounds pretty cool. That was that's where you perform in the center of the bowling alley, right?
They have like a side theater.
I must be thinking of a different bowling alley that's around there.
And I've had a release show at Moon Palace Books where I worked with a guitarist and explored more singing. That show kind of like helped me explore my style and wear more robes and just get more kind of like inward and spiritual with my journey. But it wasn't until the last 2 years that I released like an EP where I then hired a publicist and performed on Care 11 and was like a finalist at the amateur talent contest at the state fair.
Hey,
I even
congrats,
tried out
awesome.
for American Idol and got past one round, but then they were weird. They like wanted me to rap, but they didn't, and I was like, "Make up your mind, you guys. I can sing like Amy Winehouse, you know."
I think they want ratings and showbiz, on those
they
things, so it's not
they
about
did.
your
They
actual
did.
talent.
It was weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've gone through a slew of things in the industry. Had some contacts at McAllister who played my music, KRSM who played my music, the current Go 95 kind of played my music here and there when I sent in new stuff.
And that was all you pitching or your publicist, or you had a team with you?
No, that was me pitching. I only
Nice.
hired the publicist once just to see what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, when I released my album, I just emailed the same people that they hit up.
Can
And
do it yourself, yeah.
yeah, I was like, I don't got money for that again. Like, you know,
This takes a little bit of effort and research, and you can do it.
that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Cool. That kind of answers the second question. The second question is, what is the defining moment that made you realize that you wanted to be a part of this music industry? And it sounds like through that whole trial and error of everything, it kind of incorporated itself there. But you go ahead and elaborate on what you feel.
Yeah, I think it was actually meeting my group Pact. These three other members that I started making music with in 2019. The real kind of like work that I consider myself having like a steady foothold in is legacy work, meaning work that has been impactful, memorable, and a unique experience for people. That kind of started the fall of 2019, right before the pandemic, where one of my group mates, Charlotte, Mama Rose, she threw a residency with our group and then herself, where it was called Vulnerable, and she had all these people come and perform things that they normally wouldn't, or they felt like they couldn't because they had to entertain people.
That's really
And
cool.
that kind of evolved into the open mic that my group has today, called Elevate at Soul Body Finesse, which has expanded also outside of music but still includes music. And so that's kind of how I knew I wanted to keep doing music, because doing it by myself before that for years, it was cool. It was rewarding writing the music and meeting new people. But what I was really looking for in the music industry was people that wanted to stick around and hang out and be communal and, watch some anime sometimes and like, like go hang out.
Be
I had
friends
a
and be people, be
be
humans.
yeah be
Yeah,
human
yeah.
friends, because a lot of people I knew, we knew each other because we kept showing up, but we didn't really hang out. So yeah, it's weird. I guess as like a business standpoint, I was kind of looking for the opposite of like what you're supposed to be looking for, which is just connections and the hand up. Because I did look for those things, but those connections you have to try so hard to hold on to. And I don't know, if you're waiting between your next project and you're not just like pumping stuff out like left and right, those people will just move on, and then like they'll even stop answering your emails even after they like praise you or play you on the radio. And so I think with the music industry and mental health for the social aspect of it is, it's worked for me to, you know, center my things around my group,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
then do some side quests here and there, do some performances here and there, and set up some shows here and there, but kind of scale it back to um, why I want to do music, and that's to be communal,
Hmm.
have fun, you know, get some achievements here and there, and then just be able to do other things too.
Yeah. Just enjoy your life and enjoy. I mean, the industry is absolutely magnificent. It's fun. It's a ride. It's joyful, and within that, we have these mental health issues and concerns that rise up because of opinions and insecurities and FOMO and whatever else we might feel as individuals. But as you're making your points about being communal and building up your kind of community around open mic and kind of expanding from there, just hanging out, having some popcorn together, getting a milkshake together, having a burger or something, just chatting how your day was instead of just about the music. So I
Right.
really like that. You have to send me some invites to open mics. I love open mics.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the open mic that we've had is also, it's beyond music too. We've had people do poetry, um, somatic dancing, sound bowl healing, tribal dancing. So
That sounds really cool.
it's just, it's more like, what do you have to share that you think is like elevating, or that you need to share. There's also been people who share their life stories that are pretty intense and heavy too, but there's a lot we can learn from everyone, to be honest.
Another reason why I wanted to do this is have everybody kind of share their own viewpoints and how they got through some of these things, because I faced my own issues and my own mental health concerns, and the more I talk to friends, they've gone through very similar situations and maybe handled it in better ways, worse ways, same ways. So we're just going to get around perspective here.
Right.
So I sent in the chat, there is a link to spin the wheel. So I thought this would be fun to make it kind of different each time that we do an interview. So if you open that, it's a category selector. If you spin the wheel, it'll tell you which category. And then on my screen, I'll share over here. I have each category with its own wheel with a list of questions. And so you go ahead and pick out which question after selecting the wheel. It'll tell you which one, and then we'll answer a question from there. This
There you
category is self-care and lifestyle choices.
go. Yay.
We're just talking about that. So we'll just go back here. And self-care and lifestyle choices. Give that a spin. All right, Philip, if you can share your thoughts on the role of diet and nutrition on mental well-being.
Yeah. So, before I went on my music journey, actually, probably around the same time I started, um, yeah, it was around the same time. I started figuring out what I was eating was pretty crazy, because at the time my favorite food was Cheez-Its, and I've probably eaten like, man, 1,000 boxes to myself. And this is how my journey started. One day it was like 2-3 a.m. and I was watching the third Star Wars, eating a box of Cheez-Its like usual, and I looked at the box, and like, in my thoughts I was like, yeah, I've eaten like so many, like 1,000 boxes in my lifetime at least. What is in this? What have I been eating actually? So I looked
Oh
at the
no.
ingredients, and I looked up every ingredient on Wikipedia. And by the time I got halfway in, I started getting like scared and nervous, and I was like, what the hell have I been eating? Like, why am I eating this so much? And I was working at Arby's at the time. It was like my kind of like first official job, more like second, but still kind of first. And eventually, it just led me to more and more question asking, looking up things. And then I worked at Whole Foods for a year and a half. That was a big game changer because it gave me access to different types of vegetables and fruits in a way where if you went to Cub, they didn't have half of it, and then half of it was kind of nasty, I realized. So that was a big game changer. And when I worked at French Meadow for like a year, that also helped me with um, figuring out how to cook more recipes. It's played a huge role in my life, though, also because my dad lost, before he passed, he lost both of his legs due to poor caretaking of his diabetes.
That must be
So
hard.
that, yeah, that was a big wake up call for me too, where I was like, do I want to have that happen to me when I'm older? It's always in the back of my mind. It never won't be. So regardless of exchanges I have with people about class and not being able to afford certain foods, I have to tell people, I have to remind them that your body doesn't care about your political ideals. Your body doesn't care if you want people to feel bad for you. Your body is going to fail or deteriorate very quickly if you don't focus on your food, if you don't focus on getting some exercise weekly. And we get it, work can take it away so that it's not daily. That's fine. I don't even work out every day, but I try to figure out ways to still go for a little walk here and there. I'll walk to a gas station when I can, even in the winter if it's not too cold. But it's so important. And this year, I got my first gym membership that I'm paying for out of pocket for Planet Fitness, because
I'd
it's
like Planet
honestly
Fitness. Yeah.
it's the more affordable option. That's also kind of communal and has like TVs, nice locker room, blah blah blah.
I like the equipment because it tells you on the equipment how to use it. And so if
Yeah,
you're, not educated in that area, there's kind of a step-by-step process there. And like you said, it is kind of community-based and kind of, they're very inviting.
yep, absolutely. And yeah, one last thing on that, I did try to be vegan for 3 years. Um, I think successfully, uh, but also eventually my stomach wasn't able to take in the fake meat stuff anymore. Anytime I would eat tofurkey or seitan or anything that was ultra processed and still kind of like liquidy and whatever kind of preservative, it just started like getting to me too much, and I had to start eating meat again. And so I'm kind of like a step away from where I was eating, but also I've kind of figured out that there were times where I was being unhealthy because I wanted to be healthy, ironically,
Mm-hmm.
where you can there's actually, did you know that there's actually a disorder that you can be labeled with, um, diagnosed with, where you are too picky about eating healthy?
Oh, I didn't know that would be a disorder. Yeah, like in the
It,
DSM-4 or 6 now, I think they have.
yeah. So I forget the name, but it's basically like you have to, where once you get diagnosed and you're working with a doctor, they kind of like help you to like figure out like, okay, I know you want to be skinny, but you still need to eat like 500 more calories a day. You can't just eat yogurt and then like a couple of nuts. Like you need to eat more. Like eat some grain, like sprouted bread, but like eat some carbs. Like you can't just cut out everything forever. You
Yeah,
need nutrients.
I was watching a video on Dr. Eric Berg, who's couple does some podcasting and real insightful information, and he was explaining that if you start trying to do lose weight by calorie deficiency, your body over about a month period will adjust to that deficiency, and so you'll be losing at the same rate you were before that deficiency because your body
That
just
sounds fun.
your body is just like, oh, we've adjusted, so you need the hit exercise, to lose belly fat or certain areas, or maybe more salt intake, not more sodium, but more like hot Himalayan salt and some more healthy water, not dead water. And so there's a lot
Yeah.
of it's real hard to be very conscious about what we're putting into our bodies. And even fruits and vegetables, you try and see where they're coming from, try and eat locally if you can. But then you find out that that's from somewhere that somebody put their name on it, or it got sprayed with this pesticide, or this chicken. I was cutting some chicken up last week, and I'm pretty sure you shouldn't be able to just pull chicken in half. But after sitting in these solutions, and after it's how chicken probably died 3 months ago. It's been sitting in our freezer, or it's been sitting in the grocery store, and then got to our freezer for another 2 weeks. Pull it out, thaw it, and it just pulls apart. And I'm like, this isn't really what chicken's supposed to be like. This is just something
Nope.
else.
Yeah. Part of the game also is some of the health industry pimps you out to buying expensive things. Like, I know that there's the Dirty Dozen. Have you heard of this? There's the
Mm-mm.
Dirty Dozen of foods that you should absolutely buy organic because of how much it gets sprayed when it's not organic. But when it's not on that list, you don't need to buy it organic because they hardly spray it. It's not really a problem with bugs. And I'll tell you, this is another thing I learned. It's crazy because people who worked at Whole Foods, like they would tell me like little tidbits, and some of it was like almost conspiratorial at a point, but it was just like what they saw from like their ledgers is they said like, oh yeah, this organic food it still gets sprayed twice. The unorganic food gets sprayed 6 times. The organic food gets sprayed twice because if they don't, it'll still get eaten enough by bugs where people won't want it. So they have to still spray it, but they only spray it like right before they're about to harvest it or something like that because that's when
Crazy.
it's at the most peak to be vulnerable to like bugs. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. So there's not really like a for sure pure source. And then, you're growing your own stuff and you don't, it kind of looks weird and like but it's more natural. That's the thing is there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in the health industry too that says, oh, you need this almond milk. And people are like, do we need
Mm-hmm.
almond milk? Or do we just need like water and then like occasional this and that? Or do I do oat milk? Or is that too processed now?
Right. I think I saw an article about oat milk recently that said something where it was, not nearly as good as it was being presented as for your health. And I've never been a fan of dairy. I don't like milk really. I
I
like
don't like milk.
cream, sour cream, coffee creamer sometimes, but I haven't. I just the thought of drinking another animal's juice is just kind of weird to me. So I've kind of
Yeah.
stayed away from milk. Um, but yeah, that's very true, and I think that the what we eat obviously has a huge part on our mental health, our physical health and mental health, and getting outside, getting exercise, like you mentioned, a couple times a week. All those are very important. I fully agree there.
Yeah. Anytime I've been broke and I've had to just rely on eating whatever I can, especially in the summer. What happens in the summer is there's a lot of parties, and especially in the Midwest, and when you get outside the cities, it's just a lot of cheese. It's a lot of cheese and meat and bread
Mm-hmm.
and mayonnaise. You know what I mean?
Mayonnaise, good old mayo. Yeah,
So
cool.
sometimes I get it. You deal with what you can, but yeah, I think that mostly answers my journey with it.
Cool. Let's get another one here going.
Let's spin the wheel.
All right. Oh wait, my bad. Let's not do this one.
Yeah,
I was supposed
yeah.
to select a
I was like, damn,
category.
you just spun it all.
Category. There we go. Is this one we just did?
Yeah.
Do another one.
It's enough of the health. We're healthy enough. There we go.
Support systems and professional help. I'm just going to open another tab. All right. What strategies do you use to build and maintain a strong supporting network?
I'll say this. A lot of my journey in mental health has been figuring out how to access answers to questions I've had. Because when it comes to me needing to process something, a lot of times I'll put it in music and I'll feel better. Or I'll get some rest, I'll feel better. I'll eat something, I'll feel better. But when it's gone beyond that, I have always been able to discuss whatever I'm going through with any of my friends. The thing is I'm the type of person who people will hit me up and they'll be like, I want to hang out, because I'm the older I've gotten, the more happy I've gotten being alone and just continuing working on whatever I need to work on. But people know that they can hit me up. So people like somebody will hit me up, we'll make plans, and I'll go through it that way. And my biggest lesson I've learned is that no one person is going to give you all the answers that you need. So it's important to diversify your perspectives, especially when you're feeling stuck and you're kind of really in a pickle and you just don't know what to do. There was this like kind of proverb I read in a book once, which was, every single person that you meet knows something that you don't. And as far as I know, it's been true.
I would say it's very true.
No matter how, simple someone sounds when they're talking, or how, how different of opinion they have, if you just ask them the right question, or you just like sit for like a second, or even sometimes you can overhear a conversation. This happened to me at Whole Foods a lot. Is I'd walk upstairs and like have to log on to my shift or something weird like that, and people would be talking, and some days they'd be saying the craziest things. They'd be having the wildest conversations. So from strangers at work in public to not knowing who is going to give you what you need, and just letting the relationships naturally unfold has always been a good game changer for me. But also, being a spiritual person, I've learned to tap into tarot readings, oracle readings that they have on YouTube, but also with my friends. So yesterday I hung out with somebody and we both gave each other readings with her cards, and that's always been helpful, because I've found in mental health, when it comes to spiritual leaning people who are more anti-institutional medicine, right? They're more holistic. Tarot card readings are such an interesting way to just jump into hard truths with people, where they don't get as offended, because they're genuinely just like open to answers through a third party system. So it's not just you telling them, hey, just choose to be better, it's
right.
Like, oh, this card that I drew says you should try to work on yourself, you know what I mean? So
that's really interesting. I'm a big fan of the esoteric, and understand that there's a lot that's involved, and then you have the sect of religion too. But I got my tarot read once, said I was going to have a baby, and I did. So I haven't got a tarot reading again.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
It said I was gonna have, I think, a son within like the next 5 6 months or whatever, and it might have been longer than that, but that came true. And so since then, I've been kind of like, yeah, because I'm a big believer in manifestation of giving energy and thought. Like the tongue can speak life or death, and if you believe in what you're speaking about, that can be manifested. And so if I feel like maybe if I see a tarot card that got me thinking a little bit too much that I got stuck on, I wouldn't want to be stuck on something that would then manifest itself because I'm stuck on it.
Yeah, there's a lot of mixed views on tarot where some people who I know that are like try to present themselves as like spiritual, and they are. I feel like we're all inherently spiritual. You don't have to wear robes or do tarot card readings to be spiritual, but they've been like, oh no, I don't mess with that because there's a lot of dark energy in there. And from my objective experience, is tarot itself to me is both light and dark. It's like all the good and all the bad that can happen in the world in archetypal form. And there are people who are like, I'm a psychic with it. That's crazy, right? I'm not really that type of person who's like going to tell you you're going to have a baby. I just read cards after you tell me your situation. I don't like when people are like, just read them and I don't know them. I'm like, well, who are you?
Right, right.
I didn't say I was a psychic. I said I knew how to read my cards. It's kind of like a roundabout way of life coaching,
Yeah, yeah. So
for me.
kind of like guidelines or way of, or almost like a way of Rubik's cubing some situations you're in. You kind of like, these are the parameters. Let's figure out how we can assemble these parameters into a way that's going to be beneficial for ourselves and others around us.
Basically, and you don't need a degree for it, so it's nice.
Nice, nice,
So yeah, those are all my system support ways.
cool, love it. Well, I don't know how much time you got. I think we can probably do one or two more. So
Absolutely.
I originally thought these would take about a half hour, but so far, we're all enjoying the conversations, and I think I'm gonna have to start scheduling at least an hour for each person moving forward. The influence of culture and society. What a
Oh,
category.
that is, that is quite the category.
Says, how can we foster a more inclusive and supportive environment in the music industry? It's perfect for you.
Yeah. So I think it's always going to come down to people making their own spaces because the music industry itself is just concerned with what's popular because of numbers and for business models like NPR, The Current. If they played, well, they play a pretty wide range of music, and some of it I feel like as a trained musician, at least with singing, some of it sounds objectively not good, but it's creative, right? That's
Hmm.
the thing. But they also sometimes will draw the line, play more commercial music. They can't just play all only kind of like questionably good music every single day at every single time. Meaning, there's not always going to be room for certain musicians who are either too niche or they don't fit a category that they themselves are looking for, right? And sometimes when I've made projects, I'm like, I wouldn't send in half of these tracks to these people. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because they want to hear your best, usually, especially from local people. They're like, give me your single, give me your hit. And then if we like you, we'll keep playing you. There's some artists that I've known who are really creative. Like they'll make their own beats and they're very expansive. And like, if you love music, you would appreciate it, right? But those same people I've seen not picked up on the radios, not really given a spotlight. And some of that though is like I wonder if they've sent in their music.
Right, right.
Some of it I'm like maybe it's because they're white. They don't want to hear this type of rap music from this type of ethnicity of a person right now. Like maybe they're trying to, because I know the Current has specifically made like a segment called Carbon Sound, and
Oh wow.
it's mainly centered around black musicians. But they played my music before. Even then, I'm like half the time I'm like, would I send this in? This seems like, you know, rhyme sayers influenced for white suburban kids. But if they like it, they like it, and if they don't, they don't. Other radio stations, I know K Radio was not messing with my music at all, but some of it you just can't take personally. Also, I've realized, because they get so many music submissions a day, and if you're looking for a certain image, if you're trying to, like, K Radio,
Hmm.
um, they're college influence. They want the coolest looking people. They want the coolest sounding music, and it's kind of it's looking at where the rejections are, that you can kind of actually see where space is needed. That's why we made our open mic, because we noticed going to other open mics that people either weren't listening intently enough, or there was too many musicians, and then it was just like, where are the people that are non-musicians that are going to support us? So that's kind of why we did our open mic different in the way that we did, was because we want to create environments where we like the people who show up, where if I didn't support your business, it's not so much like because I'm a musician. It would be because, like, oh, like, you sell weed elixirs. I just don't drink weed. So, like, it's nothing personal. That's okay. But, like, maybe you'll come support me in one way, and then I still like you as a person, and we can hang out. And that's different than when I went to open mics and it was, how can I steal the spotlight? How can I, sell my album to other musicians and then get on another show? And, like, I have to keep moving forward. How do we create more diversity and inclusivity? We have to create it. Otherwise, it is whatever it is, as it needs to be, until someone says this isn't it, this isn't enough, or this is getting old and stale. Let's create something that we know is going to attract the people that we want to attract.
Man, I love everything you've been saying today. It's very, very. I connect with that, with those statements, because I used to go to open mics when I was in Mankato. That's how I ended up joining a couple bands. Still went to open mics. I'm not driving right now due to health concerns, but as soon as I'm able to, I'm going to be there again. I can always get a ride. So if you have one that's coming up, shoot me a text, give me a call or whatever. I'd love to come hang out and check it out, because that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We are taking like a at least 2 month hiatus though, because Charlotte is so pregnant right now, and she just did an interview on the Sundogs podcast, and you can see it. She is just ready. But love her. Um, she's got a grace about her. She's just, her name, like, her stage name is Mama Rose. Her business name is Mama Rose. She's naturally like a mother and ready to be a mother at any time. It's cool to include that process in our group, where it's like, oh yeah, you're about to have a kid, so that means we got to figure out how you're going to continue stuff moving forward. But we want to, because we do also want to include parents. We want people to get away from being stuck being a parent, so they can't be expressive, so they can't be creative. That's another aspect of our goal, is we want to create space for parents, children, and elders even, to have more space in a way that tribal communities used to have, but in like an updated way, so that we can still figure out how to do stuff and take care of people and give people dignity when they show up to our events.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's really great. And that is the way, that's true too. That is the way to do it, making people feel inclusive. And like you said, maybe if you don't jive with something that they do on their personal time, as long as it's respected in a way to where it's not harming others in the community and such, everybody can be respected equally.
Exactly, because I did notice when I was younger, I was more critical and judgmental of other people's music, especially if it was overly negative and intense. And yet, some of those people, like, when you talk to them, they're some of the most down to earth people that I've talked to. There's an interesting line between me and that type of music that I still try to draw, but I don't try to make people feel bad for making whatever they need to make in order to release those emotions. So
Yeah, music's an amazing outlet. I haven't performed for a number of years, unfortunately, and I've noticed just in my own mental health too, I don't have that same outlet, that same release. And so, working out supplements it, going for walks supplements it, spending time with my kids that, they want to be pushed on the tire swing for half an hour. That's just as physical and engaging. So there's ways to definitely supplement it, but that enjoyment of performing for other people, I greatly miss that. And then I'll come back someday, just not yet, soon.
the sooner the better. But probably like I would say like December, more like January though. We'll get those open mics up and running, and we'd love to have you there. I'm very thankful for these questions and being able to share my perspective because oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Touching on one thing you said, when music isn't an outlet, you also kind of know you're getting older when you don't need to also put on like I got to put on my rap song. I need to put on my rock song. I need to listen to music right now. When I started listening to classical music or silence, that's when I knew I was getting older. I'm like, yo, like 19-year-old would have been like, what are you doing? Like I can't handle this silence. I need to escape my thoughts.
Oh, that's amazing. I despised when up until like I didn't listen to hip hop until 2016, and I didn't like country music up until maybe the last 4 years. But as of today, I like almost all music, all genres. There's something in there, like you said about all people. There's something in all songs that I can pull out that's not in another song that I can take something and learn from that. Whether it's the drums or how the bass is laid down or how the production's made or the vocal sits on top or underneath a snare. There's so much to it that has become like a new reason to explore new music with an open and eager ear and opinion, or without opinion or biased opinion.
Right, and it's good to also like eventually see what's going on with the pulse of music in general, not just hip hop. I honestly think, especially not just hip hop, because when I found out about Remy Wolf, do you know who Remy Wolf is?
I know the name.
Right, so she started like kind of like blowing up, going on huge tours. She toured with Lorde. She was on the late night show a couple times. She's been on a Europe tour. But all those accreditations aside, she makes crazy music that's just very like so creative. And the reason why she rose to popularity during the pandemic is because people were like, I need dance music, but like I need some weird stuff because I feel weird right now. And she kind of like captures that feeling of like I want to dance, but I'm also a weirdo. Like
What are they local?
no, no,
Oh,
no, no,
okay,
no.
okay, okay.
But that's the thing is during the pandemic, especially, I started finding those other genres of music that weren't hip hop, that weren't local, and were expanding my view of how you can make a song. That you can make a song of like your crazy thoughts, and that's okay. Instead of just like I have to be so serious and and I have to be a just righteous MC because that's what I was raised on. It's like no, I can chill. But also, Pink Panthers has
I know
been
that one.
influencing the way I've been producing some of my own music. I don't know if I'll release it with my same stuff, but I've been really feeling like drum and bass tracks and adding more movement to my music, but still adding emotion to it in a way I hadn't heard before. Because I was familiar with drum and bass, but without that many vocalists on it, maybe just some UK guys
I was
saying
talking with Munchie, and he said that he wants to get you on some of his tracks too. I don't know if you know Munchie pretty well, but he was talking pretty highly of you.
right.
Thought
And
it'd be great
we
to
made a
network.
track together,
Oh, you have?
and
Okay, nice, nice.
yep, I brought over my buddy from my group, Aaron, and we were talking about it because after I wrote the hook and after Aaron recorded his verse, I said, this can be on the last Spider-Verse movie. We gotta figure this out because
Sync licensing is my game. That's where I'm trying to be into.
that's the
So
game we couldn't figure out during the whole pandemic, because I don't know what it was. Like, even after organizing our stuff and sending it in, it was still a very much gate kept kind of thing, more so than, like, I feel like it was 10 times easier getting on radio than trying to pitch my music with sync license,
since the
to be honest.
pandemic, it quadrupled on people trying to receive placements because everyone's like, what can I do? I'm stuck at home, can't perform.
Yep.
How can I make money with my music, my software that I paid thousands of dollars for? So it
Which
did
is smart.
become a very popular thing. And if you check out my website, I have an entire one-stop catalog that I'm building and developing, which I'd love to have your music on there if you're interested.
Yeah.
But basically, I'm building this catalog that's one stop, which means you have all the rights cleared, all the masters, publishing cleared, and then your PRO number, your IPI number, ISRC code, all the metadata, and then I put it into Disco, which is a software, online software that organizes tracks and used for music supervisor pitching. And so once that's all organized, then we can send it over to music supervisors or briefs, people that are looking for music. And I actually just got a brief last night. I sent out some music to and waiting to hear back. But just real quick about One Stop Music and the catalog. So Disco is going to be this platform here that's going to show up in a moment. Loading.
Yeah, no, I see. Yeah, I see what you're going for here.
Yeah.
It's an interesting process, and
Mm-hmm.
it's an information game, because if you just Google sync licensing, like, the first thing you get is like Music Gateway and some other, like, sometimes you just run into things that are so expensive and almost like halfway between a scam and real. You're like, it's real, obviously, but like, if I have to pay $300
Taxi.
to
Talking about Taxi?
right, yeah, yeah, I
Taxi.
saw that one. I didn't see that one till later, but I was just like, yeah, the Google ad placement is like, they're getting money, and then they're putting themselves up there, and it just feeds the thing, so that's the first thing you see.
Mm-hmm.
But it's figuring out what's the second thing that actually is advocating for artists, or do I find someone who advocates for me, and then we figure this way out and we do splits, versus me having to pay hundreds of dollars for somebody who's not even on my side in the first place,
Nope, totally. And that's another thing. That's why I'm putting together that catalog is like once your music's ready, got everything ready, we'll put you on the catalog, and then I send that out to music supervisors or I send it out to sync agents, which is what I'm trying to kind of segue into becoming a sync agent, which is the person that will get all the music ready and then provide it to the music supervisors or film directors. And
Which
so,
is great, because some of those music libraries, when they're not, if they're just like sitting somewhere and they're not being pitched to a music supervisor, I don't know how it will reach them, to be
yeah.
honest. Like, it's a drop in the paint or whatever. I don't even know what that phrase is, but like, you know what I
Drop in the
mean?
bucket, yeah.
There we go. The drop in the bucket. But, just continuously making music, I think, and trying to reach out to more people outside of our group, even, has been an experience for me where I'm like, I want to sync license, but I also want to keep working with other people so that there's more ways to be seen, that there's never, and we're not just trying to do our own thing and then gatekeep our own thing too, like, I've always been like, very transparent. When I got my first show at 7th Street, a bunch of people at the open mics were like, how'd you do it? And I was like, I got lucky, and this is how. But I did ask them, so you got to ask them. If you don't ask, you don't know.
Right.
Same thing with my KARE 11. How'd you get on KARE 11? My publicist, but it was kind of like the last thing that they gave to me before like my time with them was up. It was also lucky. Like,
but you were putting yourself out there, you were applying, you weren't just not doing it. So
I
that's the
did
other
do
thing.
the work. I did
Right.
make some dope music, and then I did pay money. So
You did the
to
right
me,
things.
it still seems like luck, because I know so many people who are dope who share the same sentiment.
There's a lot of people that are dope that talk more than they walk, though, and
It's
that's a big thing. Clout's not gonna really make success for you. It can help your success, but I don't think it's gonna make or break your success. And just talking game without following up stuff is not gonna do that either. So
That's right. So we'll have to chop it up about the sync licensing after.
yeah, I'll send you a message later this afternoon about it for
All
sure.
right, sounds good.
Hey, I've really enjoyed this, Philip. Do you go by Phil, Philip?
Either or, as I
I mean,
get older, more people started calling me Philip, and it's You know, I stay open about it.
Well,
But I appreciate you, Brandon. Thank you again for inviting me on this and asking myself and other people about our perspectives, because a lot of people don't know what it's like except for in the songs.
or they
That
might
doesn't.
feel alone, and hearing that other people go through the same things and have to find out how they overcome it themselves. Maybe somebody is like, I'm dealing with a similar situation, and I could try this, and that might help me. So I appreciate your support and what you said on here today. We'll go ahead and wrap it up for today. This is another Mental Health Mondays, but we'll talk soon. Thank you so much.